Now, a Conservative Party member of Parliament, Bob Blackman in the United Kingdom, has written to the newly elected Prime Minister Boris Johnson regarding the Indian government's decision of revoking Article 370. Blackman has written to Johnson in the light of a quote-unquote strongly worded and inflammatory letter made public by a number of Labour Party MPs. In his letter, Blackman has said that the constitutional changes are India's internal matter. He also goes on to say that the UK does not interfere in the domestic affairs of a third country, especially if it is a long-standing friend and an ally like India. Blackman mentioned that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government is a democratically elected one and is entitled to implement its own election manifesto. He said, and I quote, "Labour MPs should not be so surprised if an elected government keeps its promises." Blackman called comments about land grabbing and promoting exclusive Hindu settlements as highly provocative. And now we have Mr. Arun Singh, former Indian ambassador to the United States, joining us live on this broadcast. Mr. Arun Singh, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here tonight. You've seen two very important developments today globally when it comes to India's decision. One is Russia's decision to back India, and the other is this support coming in from the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom.
Yes, absolutely. And I think if you look at the whole series of international responses after Pakistan tried to internationalize the issue, I'm sure Pakistan would not be particularly satisfied with what they are seeing. And Russia's response is clearly very strong, completely in support of India, and in keeping with the position that the Soviet Union and Russia has maintained since 1955. Because it was way back in 1955 that the Soviet Union declared that it considered Jammu and Kashmir to be an integral part of India and to be an internal issue for India. So they have sustained that position, and I think what they have said right now derives from that therefore the steps that India has taken is within its internal sovereign jurisdiction, and any issues between India and Pakistan are to be resolved bilaterally. And I think from our point of view, that's very important because Russia is an important partner for India, an important defense partner, an important partner in the political context, and also a permanent member of the UN Security Council. And so that would again be a very clear signal to Pakistan. And then, of course, this statement coming out of the Conservative Party would again cause concern to Pakistan because traditionally the United Kingdom is the one that has been somewhat more supportive of Pakistan on India-Pakistan issues or even in relation to Jammu and Kashmir. Because way back in 1948, when India had taken the matter of Kashmir to the United Nations because there was aggression from Pakistan, at that time it was the United Kingdom that had manipulated the processes at the United Nations so as to bring in some kind of parity between India and Pakistan, which was not warranted, and move the attention away from the fact of aggression. Therefore, if today the Conservative Party is coming out with this kind of statement, Pakistan has to take notice. And beyond that, even the United States has clearly supported that it has to be resolved bilaterally through dialogue between India and Pakistan. Of course, they have gone on to say, as has been their position, that they are ready to help if required, because the US position, unlike Russia's position being that it is entirely within India's sovereign jurisdiction, US position traditionally has been that they consider Jammu and Kashmir to be disputed territory, but the matter should be resolved by India and Pakistan bilaterally, and they're ready to help. So I think their position is consistent with that, although over the last day or two they've also added that they note that this action has potential for instability in the region. And I believe they have done that as a sop to Pakistan because they need Pakistan today in the context of Afghanistan, where they're trying to pursue some kind of reconciliation with the Taliban. So every country is taking a position based on its own interest. But looking at the totality, I think clearly Pakistan does not have much cause for satisfaction from their perspective with the responses they are seeing.
Right, and you're talking about regional stability. You have other nations in the region like the Maldives, Bhutan, Sri Lanka and Thailand who have also supported India, calling it an internal matter, apart from the United Arab Emirates, an important member of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation.
Absolutely. And even with the kind of relation India has with the countries in the Arab world and the Islamic world, Pakistan will not get what it would want from its perspective, because every country will approach the issue from the perspective of their interests. And they have tremendous equities in India, economic, trade, political and other equities. Therefore, they'll be very careful with the kind of responses that come out. And recently, for example, the United States and Europe had come out with a very strong statement against China for the action against it was taking against the population in Xinjiang. And at that time, large number of Muslim countries came out with a statement supporting China. Because they have tremendous economic, political and state-to-state interests involved with China. So this is just to show that every country takes a position on an issue based on their interest. And going beyond that, in today's context, most of the major powers have other important concerns. The US is focusing on Afghanistan, on Syria. Russia is dealing with Eastern Europe, the situation related to Crimea. It is heavily involved in Syria. Britain is involved with the process of Brexit and its relationship with the European Union. And China is dealing with major challenges, not just in Xinjiang, but in Hong Kong. So with all this happening, nobody will really want to get involved in the effort that Pakistan is making to try and internationalize the issue.
Right, Mr. Arun Singh there joining us on this broadcast. Mr. Arun Singh, one thing before we let go of you, how do you see the responses firming up in the days going forward? Because now with the world watching, we've seen a big country like Russia, you've seen support from quarters in the United Kingdom. How do you see other countries sort of reshaping the responses based on what's been happening so far?
I think most of the countries will be watching the reactions coming from the major powers, and the reactions that have come so far have been essentially supportive of India. Even without that, I think they would have been careful in terms of their position. But with these clear statements coming out from the major powers, I think they will be taking all this into consideration as they work out their responses. And ultimately, much will also depend on the situation on the ground. So long as the situation on the ground remains essentially calm, I think people will factor that in to whatever responses they come out with.
All right, then. Mr. Arun Singh, former Indian ambassador to the United States, for joining us here on this broadcast. Thank you, Mr. Arun Singh, so much for sharing your perspectives with us.